Hey guys, welcome back to the Patar Project. I'm your host Nick Patar. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. This week I am joined by Troy Jones, who just recently completed running from Perth to Sydney. Yes, I said Perth to Sydney, nearly 4,000 kilometres, all to raise money for mental health. That is a massive achievement in which he raised nearly $60,000 that will go into running mental health first aid courses and other programs in schools through the Mindfull Australia Foundation. Grateful to have Troy on the podcast today to share his story, and grateful for everyone that listens to the podcast. If it's your first time listening, thank you, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. But before we jump in, all I ask is that you pay the fee of liking, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Just helps me to continue building the podcast. You can also show your support by signing up to my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Link will be in the bio. Let's jump into this episode. Troy, thank you, brother, for jumping on the potty today. Really appreciate it. Grateful, man.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I like to start my podcast with grateful. So what's something you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful the sun's out and I can still ride and run and swim, do all those things. A lot of people can't at this time, so I'm just grateful that I can do all those things.
How you going during lockdown? Driving yourself crazy or?
It's not too bad. Like my life doesn't really change too much. Probably see training people outside instead of inside, but that's probably the only thing that's changed. I don't really party too much anymore, so it doesn't bother me. But yeah, still just train, just do the normal day life.
What kind of impact has COVID had on your business? Because I know a lot of PTs, it's impacted so much.
Yeah, a lot of PTs had to shut up shop completely. Obviously, they don't have equipment to go outside. We're pretty lucky that we have sort of group training facility, and we have the car park out the front, which does have shelter, but still outside. It's quite hard, obviously, getting up at 5 a.m. and it's freezing cold, and you've got all these rules and regulations of how many people we can have and wiping everything down. The check-ins is just so much, but we've adapted to that. We did it last year. We're more better prepared this year as well. So super sad to see all these businesses not being able to work at all, and the government hasn't really stepped in too much this time. Last time there was government grants, but now they're just saying fend for yourself pretty much.
Yeah, it's very tough times. Like I'm a big believer of like mental health's going to take more lives during this time period than COVID ever will.
Yeah, there's I think there was about 300 from the 1st of January to the 30th of June. There was about 320 something, maybe more, maybe less, but around that 320 mark, suicides, whether all they were due to lockdowns, who knows, but I can guarantee half of those people probably would have been. Took their own lives, and then there's been one death in Victoria compared to the 330 something suicides. So, and that's something going to rise as well as people lose their businesses, the financial struggles they'll have. Being locked indoors. I know when you're depressed, you feel isolated, alone as it is. And then you get told to be locked inside and not speak to people now. That's a new thing. You can't speak to anyone face to face. So yeah, it's a recipe for suicide, really.
It's like a lot of these people probably did have mental issues going into lockdown, but yeah, not being able to communicate, especially with friends and family, it's just going to have a knock-on effect, and then ultimately they may take their life.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much hysteria in the media, so much fear. They're just drumming up fear. Obviously, sex and fear sells, so they just try to instill fear in everyone. People are backlashing against each other, like the protest yesterday. People are for it, people against it, and then just going at each other. Like you're just sort of creating divide in the community, which is the worst thing you can do. Band together, we're stronger as a unit, not going against each other. So yeah, it's going to be going on for a long time, this, and there's going to be a lot more people taking their own lives, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't see it going away, and the divide's just going to get bigger and bigger. Like I followed some people on Instagram that they went to the protests and that yesterday, and the messages they've received, like death threats and shit like that. Like, why? I don't get why people do that to other people. Like just because you don't have the same perspective or same outlook doesn't mean you say that kind of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you don't try and force your opinion on other people. If you want to go protest, you feel that's the right thing to do. You're standing up for human rights and trying to obviously end these lockdowns for freedom for everyone, and go protest. You don't want to, just keep your mouth shut and sit at home, because it's not going to make it any worse or any better. The government's just going to do what they want. And that's just a scapegoat now. They're just going to say, oh, because of the protest, we're going to lock down for longer. It's like, no, you're going to lock down to when you want to lock down. Doesn't matter if there's protest or not. You're going to do what you want to do. It's just all a corrupt organisation, really. Just want to make money off people and just scare everyone. They don't promote health or fitness in this whole thing. Like you close down pretty much all businesses, trades who have the highest suicide rates and as a occupation, and then you keep Macca's and all the fast food industries open. You want to keep everyone unhealthy and unhappy. It's a great way to do it. No, they should subsidise gyms. They should give everyone a gym membership, like a fitness passport, where you get half-price gym memberships funded by the government. Don't try and force people into getting medication and vaccines when you probably don't need it. Or health, like the health issues probably come from being unhealthy, not moving, staying inside, not talking to people, not communicating. Or a lot of these, I'm not saying all of them, but a hell of a lot of them could be stopped by just training and eating well, eating good foods, not just sitting home, eating shit, not talking to anyone, in your own thoughts, struggling because you're not working, the government's not stepping in. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only get worse and worse.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, like, they close gyms and all that, but Macca's drive-through, you can go and buy cigarettes, you can buy alcohol. Like, if they're all about health, why would they let you do that stuff?
They tell you what you want to hear, and a lot of people fall for it because the thing is, like, the most uneducated people are the loudest. They're trying to throw their opinion or someone else's opinion. They just share it on social media, which is the worst thing to do. It's someone else's opinion. They go, "Well, that sounds about right." They haven't done research into vaccines or like food, like plant medicines and that. Like, just changing your diet, exercising. Like, I haven't been sick in like 4 years. That's just eating well, not drinking, not smoking. Like, I don't put that to good genetics or my lifestyle. It's like, it's a combination of all these things. Like, you have good mental health and physical health, and you're training, you're exercising, compared to just sitting at home eating shit, going out partying all the time. Of course, you get sick and unhealthy. It's just sort of sad that there's not more awareness around it. Same thing as mental health. Like, there's so much good organisations out there, non-for-profits, that have to raise the money for themselves to try and save people's lives, and a lot of them struggle, especially this time. Is they do speaking events and big organisations, big like charity fundraisers. You can't do any of that. So, like, a lot of them are just sitting at home, just going, "What do we do when we need them the most?"
And you can't get away from this COVID stuff. It's everywhere, over the internet, the media. It's just all this negativity everywhere. And it's so hard, especially with someone that already has, mental illness. They can't get away from it.
No, that's it. And it's just, and they're just scared, and like, it's just people need an outlet. Like, and lucky mine's health and fitness. Like, if I didn't have that, if they said you couldn't exercise, and I'd be miserable as well. And some people like traveling, they can't travel, or a lot of people like going out and partying. If that's your outlet, like, I'm not going to judge you for that. Like, if that makes you happy, then go out and do it. But now people can't do the things they love doing. They sit inside and just watch Netflix or play video games, and then a year later they're still doing the same thing. They haven't grown as a person. If you're not growing, you're dying.
100%. Like, we need to band together as a society. Like, stop getting this divide. You're allowed your opinions, but don't let it divide us.
Yeah, exactly. And people try and force their opinion on other people. Like, they think they've read one article and they think that's right. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I've done a lot of research into all these things. And like, I'm not going to force my opinion on anyone else. If they ask about it, I'll tell them and tell them why, and give the resources, and they can do their own research. But don't just see one social media post and go, "Oh, that sounds right, I'm just going to jump on the back of that," and then go, "Job well done. I'm anti-protest. Look at me. Look how good I am. I'm a key member of society and I'm doing the right thing." It's like, yeah, the thing is, like, people post stuff because they think it's the right thing to do. A lot of things around mental health as well. Like, people are posting about that, and then someone goes to protest and they'll go tell them to kill themselves. It's like, don't post something, "Oh, I'm all about mental health, check in on your friends," and then you see someone that goes to the protest and you don't agree with that, and then you tell them to kill themselves, or you call them a fucking fat pig or whatever they call them, and then try and make it worse. It's like, it's contradictory, and it's very very, very polarizing. It just makes everything worse, obviously creating divide in the community, and then people start having to go at each other. It's just not going to make it any better. But that's what the government wants, is they want the divide. They want people to be scared, unfortunately. They don't want people to be happy and healthy. They want them to be miserable and stuck on medication for the rest of their life.
And we're all confused. We don't know what's right, what's wrong, what's actually happening. Like, it's really fucked times, to be honest.
Yeah. And it's been going on for so long as well. It's like, people don't have the foresight that it's going to eventually end, but it's like, it's going to end when they want it to end, unfortunately. It's not going to end when everyone stays at home and sits inside, because they have their dates and they're just going to do what they want, unfortunately. But yeah, it's super sad to see, obviously, people taking their own lives and then creating a massive divide where people are arguing over something so stupid. Like, everyone should be happy and healthy and just enjoying life, because these are the glory days. Like, we have a lot of opportunity to do well on social media. And unfortunately, it's just taking a back seat, and everyone's just having to go at each other.
Yeah.
It's a super powerful thing, social media, or it could be super detrimental to people's health and mental health as well.
Yeah. You just got to learn how to use it correctly and not get caught up in all that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, lockdowns and that, like, I think, like, look at Melbourne, for example, 5th lockdown. it's not getting any better. I think they would have learnt by now. Like for me, I personally believe like quarantine the sick and let us live. If you're sick, well then get quarantined. But the rest of us should be able to live, and we need to learn to live with it because it's not going
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not as bad as the media thinks. Like if you break down the percentages of it all, it's like 0.0% death rate. It's the same as the flu. Like the thing is, cancer's been around for 100 years and no one's getting free chemo. People who have diabetes don't get free insulin. So if they cared that much about the community, why wouldn't they give everyone free chemo, free insulin, all these things that are actually killing a hell of a lot more people that have been here for a hell of a lot longer? It's just, yeah, just when
All
it suits
about
them, they'll
all
tell
about the
you.
dollar bills, mate.
That's it. It's a corrupt organisation, but they can hide behind the government.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anyways, like I was super pumped for this episode. For people who don't know you, you want to kind of introduce yourself, your upbringing, and then go into like your battle with mental health and all that.
yeah. So I'm Troy. I'm 29 years old now, so I'm getting older. And I grew up in Ulladulla. So I've always been sort of fit and healthy, but not like completely fit. Just like used to surf. I was active. I wasn't just sitting home playing video games. I like to get out and about, but I was never really good at sports. I played football, and I was probably on the bench a lot. But yeah, I just love surfing and just hanging by myself. And then sort of got into partying at an early age. I was like 16 drinking, and obviously the life struggles sort of hit you. You don't know how to deal with little things that happen in your life. And then I had a good friend fall off the ridges not too far from where I live, and that sort of just sent me on a downward spiral out of control. My first death, and didn't know how to deal with it, and just used drugs and alcohol as an escape. And I'm not going to sit here and say don't do drugs, they're bad. But if you're suffering depression, or if you're anxiety, or your life's not 100%, you're not 100% happy in your life, and that's something to magnify and make it a hell of a lot worse. And I sort of, yeah,
How old were
suffered
you when that
depression.
happened?
It was about 7 years ago. So
Yeah,
what was it, about 22-ish.
22. Yeah.
And that's still pretty young. Like I had a pretty good life growing up, like nothing really bad happened. And then all of a sudden, yeah, just had my first big traumatic experience and didn't know how to deal with it, and just sent me out of control into a life of partying. And it was so detrimental, but I'm glad it happened. And then just sort of a lot all happened after that. But yeah, health and fitness saved my life. And, I love sharing my story because people might relate. Like so many people would be using drugs and alcohol as an escape, and then they're just sitting at home and they're fucking miserable and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't have that foresight. And unfortunately, a lot of them take their own life. And I was lucky that I never did. I did a lot of dumb stuff that could have taken my life, and I probably should be dead 10 times over. But fortunately, I'm sitting here talking to you and trying to help people.
Mm. When that all happened, did you have a support network around you, or the only thing was you just mastered with drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, so I had my mates, which was sort of like an escape when you'd sort of after you get on it, and then you start opening up a lot more. And it was good at the time. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know the resources we have out there, like all the mental health first aid and mental health plan where you can go to the doctors and you can see psychologists subsidized. There's so many different avenues out there, and that was my one avenue. And yeah, it was probably the worst one I could have taken, but I don't regret it at all because I'm sitting here. I probably wouldn't have done the stuff that I have done now without obviously those traumas and that experience.
Mm. When you were masking with drugs and alcohol, obviously you got the highs and you forget about it. But what was the feeling like on those come downs when
Oh,
fucking
the
reality
worst
hit
thing
you?
ever. Yeah, come down's as bad as it is if you're happy, but when you like, I was never diagnosed depressed, but I was definitely depressed. What my definition of is depressed is where you feel like you don't want to be here anymore. I never tried to take my own life, but I thought that I'd probably rather not be here, and I'm living proof that it does get better. For anyone out there who is suffering, yeah, it does get better. There's so many people out there like me that are living a happy, healthy life now. And 7 years ago, I never thought I'd be sitting here talking to you about how I ran across Australia for mental health, or the new events I've got coming up. Like, and it's even during lockdown, it's probably I'm still the happiest I've ever been. So, but yeah, it was a big just an escape really, and I didn't know any better. But now I have all these resources that I've learned about and just heard from other people. So there are other avenues out there apart from drugs and alcohol.
Mm. And how many years were you on that, drugs and alcohol? Like how bad did it get? What was rock bottom for you, would you say?
Rock bottom. There was probably two rock bottoms. One was when I sort of came into my lounge room one morning and was on a Monday morning getting ready for work. I was just between jobs and I was working one day here, 2 days there. And I just had this it was like an epiphany, like in the Simpsons movie, how like he gets hit by that thing. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I've lost, I don't remember the last 6 months of my life. It was just like, I lost 6 months, which that was one of them. And I said, like, from then I was like, I got to sort my shit out, or I'm probably not going to be here in a few months, or I'm going to do something dumb that's going to eventually kill me. So that was one. And then another one was I got arrested for selling coke, and I was sitting in a jail cell after I got locked up, just wrong place at the wrong time. And I'm glad it happened. Yeah, but I was sitting in a jail cell next to, I think she might have had schizophrenia, but she was sitting there just banging her head against the cell next to me. And I was just like I shouldn't be here. Like, I'm a nice guy. Like, I try and I just was trying to sell it so I could do it myself because it's fucking expensive. And then that was probably one of them. Yeah. And going to community service where they're all ex-ice addicts, or a lot of them were still on the ice. And there was a guy shooting up heroin. I was just like, how did I end up here? And that was sort of the turning point from there. And they're all things that I'm glad that happened now, that it's just an experience and it's just sort of shaped me to who I am. So those are sort of the rock bottoms, but the best rock bottoms I've ever had.
It's a bit of a reality check, like especially sitting in that cell with someone schizophrenia, banging their head and then shooting up heroin. People I guess are naive to all that stuff and don't believe it happens. Especially like when you watch movies and you see like you get chucked in the white padded wall and get drugged up and stuff. People don't believe that happens, but I've had someone on the podcast and they've gone through that. And a lot of people don't come out the other side, and luckily enough she did. Do you know Simone Brick?
No.
She's a runner? Okay, yeah, she's a runner. That happened to her. She had like complete anorexia and her mind was all over the place, and she got chucked in one of those white padded walls and stuff. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, this actually happens to people? And like, it would have been like for you, like a massive reality check, like, shit, this actually happens and I do not deserve to be here.
No. And that's the thing, is like, I was sitting there and it's like, I shouldn't be here. Like, this is not me. Like, if this is where my life's ended up, well, I'm going to have to change it from here on. So yeah, from then it took a while. Like, it does take a while to get back on track and then find your feet. And obviously, as you get older, you realize how stupid you were. Like, I looking at photos last night, and I was just like, geez, I used to be an idiot. But you sort of learn from those things as well. Like, you make your mistakes in your early 20s, early teens, and then you sort of shape you are in your 30s as well. But yeah, they're all learning experience and learning curves and stories. Like, learn from my mistakes. Don't learn from your own.
Yeah, and it's all a part of the journey as well. Like, you wouldn't be talking to me today, you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't go through all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So what were the next kind of steps? So did you get straight into health and fitness after that? Was that just training yourself, or you did personal training course? What was it?
Yeah, I was always sort of like lifting weights to justify my partying on the weekend to make myself feel better. But yeah, I was doing a workshop with one of my friends who was running it, and he said, "Why don't you do personal training?" And I was like, "I could never be a personal trainer. Have you seen half the people?" Like, I sort of idolized, and I was like, "Oh, that's not me. That could never be me." Had those limiting beliefs where I thought I was not good enough to be one. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I was painting at the time, and then I'd end up studying and then finishing, and then just found a job opportunity off the back of that. And that's sort of where it all started, like helping people. And I always wanted to get into firefighters. So I was like, I want to be a firefighter, I want to save lives. I imagine how good that'd be, running to burning buildings and pulling people out, and you've saved their life. And obviously with the criminal record, you can't do that. So I found personal training, and it's just as, I could think, just as rewarding as well, because you don't realize how many people are suffering from mental illnesses or anxiety, depression. They've got social anxiety because they feel like they portray themselves on social media differently. Like, and just helping those people is super rewarding. And it's probably just, obviously saving lives would be pretty cool, but you probably do save their life and change their life for the better, and then teach them skills where they can carry that on through their families as well. So
Yeah, I know a lot of PTs, and they're like 80-90% of their jobs is just listening to their clients and basically kind of being like a counselor or outlet for them to just talk shit and like get all their feelings off the chest, and like the other 10% is training.
it literally is. You're like a unqualified counselor, but obviously the more life skills you have as well, the more you can give them your opinion. I always say, like, it's worked for me, it might not work for you, but yeah. So you are sort of a counselor, and you just sort of help them through things that they're going through, which is super rewarding. Breakups or drug addictions or anything really. You try and help them as best you can.
Does it get hard at times, like when you're trying to work on yourself and then also you're training people and they're kind of talking about their feelings and you kind of have to take on their baggage as well, kind of thing? Does that impact you?
Yeah, it does a lot. Like especially if they're really suffering, you do take it home with you as well. So it's not just like you work from 5 till 10 in the morning, from 3 till 7 at night. Is people message you at all hours of the day, and I don't mind that too much. And it may annoy other personal trainers, but it's sort of like that's part of the job for me. Is it was sort of hard at the start. In my last relationship, sort of, I just thought that I was a 24/7 personal training service, and it sort of divided our relationship a little bit where I sort of was just all in, but I sort of know how to compartmentalize it all now. Is I don't write back after a certain time, and then I'll give them realistic goals if they need meal plan changes or something like that. So I'm not just like, yeah, I'll do it now and then just drop everything and do that. So you still got to live your life, but obviously you want to help them as well as best you can.
Mm. And when did you start like being an advocate for mental health?
Probably about 2, 3 years ago. When I went on probably Corey's podcast, is the first time I openly spoke about my struggles, and super scary at the time. Obviously, airing out your dirty laundry, but if you tell everyone your dirtiest, darkest secrets, and no one can hold anything against you, and if my story can help change or save a life, well, then I'm glad I've told it 10 times over. So that was probably the first time where I realized that I sort of have a story to tell. If it helps someone, it helps someone. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yeah, and then leading up to the run, I really just thought, just really step it up a notch. So it was super cool to find my sort of niche, and I'll keep doing this and keep advocating mental health until the day I die, or the day that there's zero suicides.
Mm. And back on like the health and fitness, I guess it comes hand in hand with mental health. Like the amount of people that I've spoken to, once they get into that health and fitness journey, like their mental health's just improved dramatically. It's crazy how just simply looking after yourself can really turn your life around.
Yeah, I've seen it happen so many times. Like so many clients come in and they have social anxiety because they look differently on Instagram or something like that, or they don't. You eat shit, you're gonna feel shit. You don't move. You sit at home. You sort of have no aspirations or goals, and you come in and you give them the confidence they need to then apply for that new job or to ask that person out, or they just make drastic changes after they feel more confident, which is super rewarding. That's why I love the job, and I'll always be in this sort of industry, whether I'm helping just everyday people or where they go sort of on the mental health route, and then try and create a program where I can incorporate health, fitness, mindset, all that kind of stuff, and try and, I guess, rehabilitate people, which would be super interesting and cool to do.
Yeah, that's amazing work that you're doing. Now, was the Perth to Sydney run the first time you were actually raising money for mental health, or have you worked like raised money before?
Yeah, so when I first decided to do the run, I was looking at all these big organizations, and I ended up emailing a few, and then I found one, and I was like, maybe I'll do it for this big one. And then I emailed the person, and they pretty much said, like, told them what I was doing. I was super excited. Then I emailed them, and they said, that's cool, just fill out this form and thank you. And I was like, I'm running from Perth to Sydney, right across Australia, like, a little bit more than a thank you would be cool. Then it didn't really sit well with me. Then I actually listened to Corey's podcast with Matt Reynolds, who's the CEO of Mindfull, and everything, because he was non-for-profit for mental health, and everything he said, I was just like, this is the guy I want to raise money for. So I ended up getting in touch with him before the run, about a year and a half before, I think, or maybe a year before. But we have these 6-week challenges in gyms, and we do a check every charity. So each time you post something, then tag Mindfull and the Gym Transform 40s, we'll donate $1. So for every time that someone takes a photo and then tags both in it, we'll donate $1 to that organization. So we've probably raised about maybe nearly $5,000 for them, just through challenges, just from people sharing and posting. It's super cool. We've built that good relationship. And then, yeah, obviously the run came about, and I was just like, obviously that was a shoe-in. Mindfull, they do great things. But the best thing about the organisation is wherever the money comes from, so say it came from, so I'm in Sydney, the Sutherland Shire, is the money comes back into our community. So obviously the money we raise throughout the gym is they put all us coaches through a mental health first aid course, and then they put like 4 or 5 clients through as well. And I spoke to Matt, obviously raising just under $54,000. who run across Australia is all that money's going to come back into the community. We're going to try and put into their in-school programs. So that'd be super cool, like around the Shires. Hopefully we can get like a lot of the schools done around here, obviously with the them allowing it us to come in. So
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned mental health first aid course. What is that for the people that don't know?
So pretty much the easiest way to explain it is, do you know how you do your first aid course? It's the exact same thing, but for mental health. So they teach you how, they take you through, like it's a 2-day thing. They teach you how to identify and understand, I guess, all the mental illnesses out there, how to have conversations about mental illnesses, and how to ask someone if they're going to take their own life as well. So there's different ways of going about it. People think that if you ask a depressed person, are you going to take your own life, it's going to put it in their head and they're going to do it, which is not actually the case. So it's super cool and interesting to understand more about all these illnesses and how to, I guess, interject and come up with plans and the resources out there. Because I've asked probably about 6 people now if they've thought about killing themselves, taking their own life. And fortunately, all 6 of them said no. But when you first ask that question, it honestly freaks you out when you have a conversation with someone one-on-one and you know they're depressed and you ask them, are you going to take your own life, or have you thought about it, or do you have a plan to do it? It's not the easiest conversation to have, but I guess it's a great tool to have, where you can just confidently ask them and they say no, and you're like, sweet, perfect. All right, let's try and get your mental health back on track then. And these are the ways or resources out there that we can do that.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is break the ice around mental health, especially with your friends and family. Like, even though you might have a group of mates, just break the ice. Who cares if you get called a pussy? Because in the group environment, they'll probably call you a pussy, but the next day they'll probably call you, bro, thank you so much. Like, I needed that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the word suicide freaks people out. And that's the thing, is I've obviously had many conversations about mental health and suicide. Saying suicide is just like saying running, like it's just another word, but people are like, oh, like they freak out about it. And that's the sort of conversation we have to have. Like, this podcast is a perfect one, because people listen to this and go, oh, if these two guys are talking about it, then I can talk about it. Or we just need to normalize it, because it's not going away, unfortunately. It's probably going to get worse over the next few months or few years, however long COVID's existing. And it is coming around as well. Like 10 years ago, there wouldn't have been conversations around as much as there is now, and there's more people getting behind it, especially during the lockdown as well, which is super cool. But yeah, I think the best thing is sharing your story. Like, people like me, I'm just a normal guy from Sydney who suffered depression and could have taken his life and could have ended up dead, but he's here and he's happy and he's healthy now. And there's so many more people out there that would be sitting at home going and maybe listening to this podcast and going, that's me. And then if they share their story and then their friends will share their story, it's just going to be like a flow-on effect. Because you see like celebrities and they share their story and it's like, oh, but they're a celebrity, they're different, but they're just normal people like us. So the more conversations we have around this, the more people share their own struggle and share their stories, then people won't be scared to reach out. Like, if you get 1,000 guys sharing their story and then that 1,001 person guy goes, I'm depressed. Okay, well, I'm suffering as well. I thought about taking my own life. Is I end up speaking up.
Yeah.
But it's just people just not giving a fuck what people think, unfortunately. Is the worst thing, is they don't want to share their story, because exactly, you don't want to get called a pussy. It's like, if reaching out for help is being a pussy, well, then I'm a massive pussy.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see the conversation. It's great to see you come on today and chat about it. Like, that's why I do the podcast and get people like yourself to kind of bridge that gap. Like, no matter if you're a professional athlete or celebrity or just an average guy like yourself, bro, everyone suffers mental health. It could just be on different levels, but everyone goes through it.
Yeah, exactly. And rock bottom is rock bottom. No matter how you get there or what your classification is, rock bottom. If you're struggling and you're not seeking help and it's not getting better, if you have more worse days than good days, well, then you got to reach out, whether it to be psychologists, psychiatrists, counsellors, friends, family, all the Lifeline, all these organisations that do sort of help you, talk you through it. And the best thing now is they've got a messaging app. So you can message, I'm pretty sure it's Lifeline. If you don't want to speak on the phone, if people obviously don't want to speak, so you can message. So there are other resources out there. It's just people just looking for help and asking for it.
The education's getting better, more resources, like first aid mental health course. But I only recently just heard of that, and it's great to hear that they have programs like that now, because Like when you were younger, when I was younger, none of that stuff was around. We wouldn't even know where to go if we had mental health issues.
No. And it's just, you see, like you look in schools now and you've got computer studies and you've got metal work and you've got woodwork. Where's the mental health first aid course? Like where's that? Is that not as important as learning how to weld two pieces of metal together or learning all this stuff about geography? Is like, yeah, they're good, but they're not going to save lives. Learning what kind of rock this is not going to save someone's life. Learning how to deal with your own emotions and process your emotions and identify suffering and how you can, I guess, help yourself through that or help other people through that. That's what will save lives. And interjecting so young as well is you sort of, as you grow up, you sort of build these characteristics from your early childhood. Is you have traumas that sort of shape you who you are. Is if you get kids at 4, 5, 6 years old and teach them how to process their emotions, think about how many lives are going to be saved because they know how to speak up and reach out and talk to other people if they're suffering, if they're upset. And that's what Mindfull does, is they go into schools and teach kids how to process their emotions through colors. It's like, Troy, why are you feeling blue today? And they're like, oh, because Tommy didn't come in. It's like, how can we get you to feel red? Like red's happy. And then it's like, well, if he came in, it's like, well, he'll be here tomorrow. Like stuff like that is key to sort of changing the sort of stigma around mental health and helping the younger generations, because people are pretty set in their ways, unfortunately. Is the older generation are just shut up, don't talk about it, get over it pretty much. And something has to change there because it's obviously not working.
Spot on. Like we definitely need to get to the younger generation, but also work on the older generation, because it's all good to get into schools and teach these kids how to deal with their emotions. But then if they go home and their parents are like fully shut off, and then it's like a clash, and then the kids are ultimately just revert back to, just holding all their feelings in because they can't express how they feel.
Yeah, exactly. They idolize their parents. When you're 4 years old, you think your mum and dad are Superman, Superwoman, and you just obviously learn from them. So if they're just like, don't talk about your emotions, don't be a pussy, it's like, okay, well, I better not talk about it then. And then they're going to go live in life and they're going to have a few bad things happen to them. And then they're going to turn to drugs and alcohol and not know how to process it because mum and dad said, shut up. And then they're going to take their own life. And then the mum and dad are going to be like, why'd this happen? It's like,
It's a sad reality, but I think it is getting better. We just got to keep working hard to improve
definitely.
it.
And
Now,
and taking your own life as well. Sorry, one last thing on that. And taking your own life is like, you got all these diseases and illnesses that take your own life, but you're taking your own life. Nothing else is taking it. So if you feel like that you don't want to be here anymore, like, and then you you kill yourself, it's super sad. Like, and it shouldn't even be existing. And that's why I'm sort of just like, I'll come on this podcast and I ran across Australia for this sort of stuff, is because it hits home that like people get to that point, and I've sort of been at that point, but it does get better and people just lose hope. And that's unfortunately where it happens. So you just got to have hope and hold on. There's thousands of people out like me that have been like a lot of people out there who have suffered and then end up coming out the other side. So yeah, just have hope.
yeah, and I think a lot of people are naive to the whole mental health thing and suicide. Like they don't believe it happens until someone close to them or it happens to themselves. And the sad reality is it does happen, and it's even sadder when someone's in a position of full clarity and like they're fine with taking their life. Like that is really fucked up.
Yeah, super sad, and can be avoided.
Exactly.
More conversations like these.
Yep. Now let's jump into this run. Perth to Sydney. You're a crazy motherfucker. Why? First, how did you get into running? And second, why Perth to Sydney?
So I got dragged into running actually. So I think it was about 4 years ago, probably like pretty much to this date on Saturday to Surf. We had a Saturday to Surf team in the gym, and everyone's like, well, you have to do it as a team, as a gym. And I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not doing it. And then they were like, you have to. And I was like, all right, sweet. So like, I think 2 weeks before I did like a 5K run and a 6K run. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to make the 11 kilometers. This was brutal. Like I was left behind. Everyone else smoked me. And like, I'm not saying that everyone else that we from the gym was, or like the team was unfit, but I was like, surely I'm better than that running at that person. They're like, yeah, just got totaled. So And then actually on the day I did the run and made it halfway. So 11 Ks from Sutherland to Cronulla. Now in the scheme of things isn't much at all, but I got halfway and my legs just gave out. And I was like, this has got to be the worst thing I've ever done. And then, I was super cardio unfit. So I was struggling there. My legs gave out. And I finally finished that cross the line. I was like, I can't believe I just made that. And it was just the most euphoric feeling because I thought I was dying about 5Ks ago and I finally crossed the line. And I had two decisions since then. That day, I was like, okay, I can either become the best runner I can be or I can just completely quit running. And obviously I chose the best runner I can be. And it sort of eventuated from there into city to surf. And then half marathons. I did a marathon. And then one of my mates is like, there's a thing called Race the Planet. So it's a 250K multi-leg marathon. So it's like a stage race. So you do like a 40K, 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 60, and then a 12K. And it's over like these amazing terrains. Like there's one in Antarctica that there was. It was Gobi Desert. So they do them all over the world, but you carry your own stuff. And that seemed like the pinnacle of running. And I was like, if I can do that, that means that's the best run I could be. And then I told one of my mates and he said, why don't you run from Perth to Sydney? And that's how it happened. So I was like, okay. And I ended up putting it out there. And 2 years later, I finally crossed the finish line.
Shit. What kind of planning goes into an event like that? Because obviously I'm friends with Corey and the World's Strongest Marathon. Like there was a lot of planning that went into that. And I would assume this is a lot bigger event. I wouldn't say it was an event because not a lot of people came with you during it, but there was a lot of stuff that you had to plan, like your food, water, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I reckon it was worse than the actual run itself. Is I can hardly book a doctor's appointment, let alone plan a run from Perth to Sydney and everything in between. So it was super overwhelming. And I'll leave it to the last minute. I was like, oh, I'll do it next week. And then obviously with that stuff that I don't like doing, you tell me to run 50K and I'll be like, okay, sweet, I'll run 50K. But if you tell me to get approval by the government to run from Perth to Sydney, it's just overwhelming. I'm like, oh, so luckily I had my girlfriend who helped me heaps as well. And my boss from work, he said, I'm not going to plan it for you, but I'll get you anything you want. So, but yeah, there's so many different things. Like we did a fundraiser to fund the run as well, because the actual cost of the run was at nearly $25,000, like with the vehicle, food, petrol. So like I just tried to obviously fund as much of that as I could and then just put in my own money for the rest. But yeah, it's sort of super overwhelming, but we end up making it. A lot of people usually do these sort of things with a massive team. So like they'll have a physio or a doctor or a medic on hand and then someone to run with you as well. But we just went 2 hours, me and my girlfriend, in a small van. So it was a super interesting experience, but I think back on it now and I'm like, damn, wish I was still there, because it's such a weird journey seeing Australia from that angle.
How the hell did you rope your missus into coming with you?
I don't know. We weren't even together when I decided to do it. So luckily we sort of found each other. Then I told her what I was wanting to do. And she was like, I'll come with you. And I was like, sweet, because I got no one else to drive. Originally I was getting my mum to, but she's like, I can't have 2.5 months off work because she started a new job. And I was like, shit, there goes my driver. But yeah, she wanted to come and we both work at the same gym. So it was super grateful that the team just stepped up and took all our clients and classes, because we had a lot of clients in class before I left. And then we just opened the second gym as well. So there was a lot going on. And then a week later, we both left. So everyone was super busy for 2 months till we got back.
Did it make your relationship stronger?
Yeah, everyone's like, did you fight? And I was like, yeah, we fought. I told her before, I pre-framed it. I said, look, I'm going to be super grumpy and everything I say, probably I don't mean, but it wasn't too bad. Like it was sort of like not a holiday because I was sort of running all day, but yeah, it made us stronger and we shared memories and moments that not many people would share. And yeah, it was just seeing Australia from a completely different angle and seeing from Perth to Sydney, everything in between. So seeing a lot of nothingness and a lot of cool things as well.
Yeah, it sounds like an epic journey. How do you train for something like that?
When I first started running, after I decided to do it, I was just like, my training schedule in my head was like, I just have to run as far as I can and then keep doing that. So when I first started, I'd run like 30 Ks and then my legs would be so cooked that I couldn't run for 4 days. And I was like, surely this is how you train for something like that. And then I spoke to my boss, and he's like, look, I know a lot about health and fitness, but I know nothing about running. You have to get a coach. So I was like, sweet. So this is probably like a year of running, and I emailed like five people, told them what I wanted to do, how long I've been running for, and they all said, no, you're crazy, you won't be able to do it. And I was like, sweet, do you know anyone that would train me? And then one person sent this guy, and he had belief in me. I knew I could do it, and he thought I could do it as well. So that's all I needed. And yeah, we sort of just built from there. I told him what I thought I was running. I sort of lied a little bit. I was like, I'm running from this to that. And then I got injured probably for the first 6 months of our training together. But then after I got all those injuries, yeah, we sort of just kept building and building. So we started off with the first big thing I remember was 21 half marathons in 21 days. And that was like the pinnacle. I was like, fuck, that seems hectic. And then we sort of just built from there. And by the end of it, I did a simulation week, which is like 60 Ks a day for about 7 days. And that was probably my biggest training block of 420 Ks a week.
Shit. Now, it's easy to map out, 60 Ks a day, and on paper it looks, it's doable. But you drove over there, so you would have seen the distance that you had to run back. Day one, when you hop out of the car, did you have any thoughts of, fuck, what the hell have I got myself into?
Yeah, because I sort of always tell them, like, you can picture like how far 30 Ks is. My original plan was 60 Ks a day for 65 days. It didn't obviously end up like that because the first 2 weeks my body just broke down. But so you think 30 Ks, so you roughly know how far 30 Ks, and you go, okay, times that by 2, and then by 60 days, and then you sort of create like a visual map in your head. When it takes you 5 days to drive over, and like you're doing like 6-7 hours a day, some 10-hour days, you're driving 130 Ks an hour, you're like, geez, this is a lot further than I thought. So when I first mapped it out, I put it on walking. So I was like, oh, yeah, I'll just from Perth to Sydney walking, that'll be the route I'll take. And that was 3,000 Ks. And I was like, sweet, that doesn't seem too much. And then I realized that if I was a support car, then they can't go through a lot of these walking trails that I had. So I ended up putting another 1,000 Ks on it. So it ended up being just shy of 4,000 Ks. So
Shit.
I stitched myself up hard then.
Oh, God. What was the hardest part of it all?
Probably the first 2 weeks is I've read a lot of things about your body breaking down in the first 2 weeks, and then it gets stronger from there. And I was like, okay, sweet. So I know the first 2 weeks are going to be hard. I just didn't know how hard it would be. So probably from day 4 to 17, I experienced every pain that you could possibly think of from the hips down. Even my back was sore from sleeping, shoulders, just from holding them up. And yeah, it was super, super tough. And it sort of took its toll on me mentally as well. Because I was like, if I can't make it past day 4, like I had a swollen ankle, and I was like, every step was just a sharp shooting pain up my leg. And I was like, I felt like I was broken. And then I just got to make the distance. And then I only made 16 Ks a day. It took me only 4 hours. And then the next day I ended up making 62, sorry. And yeah, the body was just broken down, but it ended up getting better and better over time. And then eventually, sort of towards the end, it's just, you don't really feel the pain, or you just get used to feeling the pain.
It's crazy how your body can just adapt over a time period like that. It's fucking amazing what the body can do.
Yeah, it sounds so like, I guess, just the complete opposite is the more you run. I'm not obviously recommending running if you've got a broken ankle, it's going to heal itself. But I found the more I ran and the more I moved, that the stronger the body got. So I had these, like, I don't call them injuries because nothing lasted longer than 6 days. But all these pains I felt, was like, if I have this till I finish, and I'm gonna be in agony the whole time. But yeah, a lot of these things, like, they'll last like a day, 2 days. And I think it's your mind setting a pain signal going, this is torture. I want you to stop. I want you to stop. And after a certain point, your mind goes, okay, he's not going to stop. And then your body and your mind align you on that sort of even playing field where you go, okay, well, he's not going to stop. We have to work together to try and get through this. So it's super cool that I got to experience that firsthand. So I've read a lot about it on these like massive endurance feats where your body breaks down. You just have to push those 3 weeks, and then you start to get stronger and stronger.
What do you think is more important, your mental strength or physical strength? Obviously, you need a nice base level of fitness to do something like that, but you really need that mental strength to turn up every day and fucking push your body to the limits.
Yeah, the hardest thing is getting up and committing to the day. So yeah, definitely mental strength. Like you can be as fit as a fiddle, and then if you're sort of weak-minded, you're not going to make it. You're going to pull out in 3 weeks. Like I'm not the fittest, I'm not the fastest, but I obviously just got up every day and just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
You just got to have that grit, determination to finish it. What was your factor of keep going? Like, were you listening to certain stuff that motivated you to keep going, or what was it?
Yeah, I just knew I wasn't going to quit. So I was either I do the running or I stay here for the rest of my life. So it was like, no one's going to do it for you. You just have to do it yourself. And listen to a lot of podcasts, audiobooks. Obviously, David Goggins was a massive eye opener back in the day. I've listened to it 3 times, but that was sort of the realization that any normal person can do extraordinary things just with repetition and determination and a bit of sacrifice as well. So, and then music as well, and just sort of seeing Australia. I just couldn't quit. I had one point in the trip where I knew I wasn't going to quit, but the only way was to obviously be so injured that I couldn't go anymore. So I just had the day from hell where everything was going bad. And obviously in everyday life, you put a few problems together and it's not that big of a deal. But when your emotions are all over the place, you're emotionally, spiritually, and physically broken and bruised, that you just, every little thing becomes magnified into one big thing. So I was like, if I'm going to quit, I'm going to have to break my own ankle. So I thought about how I would do it. And luckily I didn't break it. Like I honestly was going through my head and I was like, this is how I'm going to get out of it. Because I wasn't just going to be like, oh, I give up, it's too hard, I can't do it. I was like, I'm going to have to really seriously injure myself where I can justify leaving. But I'm glad I didn't, because the next day I would have had to run with a broken ankle.
Yeah. Now, running across the desert, you probably wouldn't have seen much, but what was some of the coolest stuff that you seen out there?
We've seen obviously a lot of roadkill, but seen dingoes, heaps of emus, which is super cool to see. Like obviously you see pictures of them, heaps of kangaroos, and then we went to a camel farm. So there's supposedly more camels in Australia than, I don't know if it's Africa or somewhere like obviously where the camels originate from. There's more camels in Australia, and a lot of people from overseas buy our camels because we've got the best ones. But we went to a camel farm which is closed, but the guy ended up opening up for us. So yeah, probably the camels were the highlight, definitely.
That's awesome. And how many days were you out there?
I was out there for 73 days. So a week later than I thought. So obviously the first 2 weeks I was making, like some days I was making, I think 2 days I made 16K each day. And then I think the next shortest day was like a 21. And then everything after that was like over 40. But to try and make up the days and get back on the date I wanted on the Saturday, it just was too hard. Obviously, as time went on, the days got shorter. So I ended up extending it another week. Obviously, because I could have got back on like a Tuesday or something, but I was thinking no one's going to be here on a Tuesday. I was running to Cronulla by myself. It'd be sort of like an anti-climax to finish. So I sort of wanted to have a big event on the day I got back. So ended up pushing it back a week. It was the best thing I did. Obviously, it made my kilometers reduce a little bit. So I was running from like anywhere from about 54 to 60 Ks. And it was less stress. Obviously, as you lose sunlight, your rest in the middle gets shorter and shorter. But yeah, ended up being 73 days.
Shit. What was it like running back into Cronulla?
Yeah, it was super overwhelming. Ended up starting, like we sort of had an event where we finished in Cronulla and there was a ceremony. There was like stalls down there, but ended up starting with like 16 people and then ended up finishing with nearly 100, 200 people down there. So
Would have been a massive surreal feeling, like 70 plus days out there, and then you get home, like you're stuck in this, routine and habit of getting up every day and running, and then to just be finished. Does it hit you like, what next? Like, what the fuck do I do now?
yeah, it was a big anticlimax. Like I was super happy to finish, but when I got home and then the next morning I woke up at 4 a.m. just pacing the house going, what next? I feel lost.
Any thoughts to
So
just keep running like Iron Cowboy, just go do another one?
I actually thought about running that day and I was like, give myself one day rest. And then the next day I sort of got back into it and started like training again for the next thing. So yeah, I just felt super lost. Obviously you live and breathe it for the last 2 years of your life. And then all of a sudden it's just finished and you're like, now what?
Hmm.
What do I do now?
What was the recovery like after such a long event?
It wasn't too bad. My body felt pretty good. Obviously, yeah, just got used to running, and I didn't want to stop running completely. Where then when I started running, it was just torture. So obviously, I had 1 week where I stopped running because I started training for triathlon. So I had a week rest there, but ended up being holding up pretty well.
Awesome. And you said you raised nearly 60K or so for the Mindfull Foundation. What does that money kind of do? You mentioned programs and stuff like that. What else does it do?
So we're going to sort of try and fund it into schools, in school programs, but depending on obviously the schools allowing it, if we can or not. But even mental health first aid courses for people in the community would be super cool to do. I know how much it can help people. So I've seen it before, and it's helped me obviously speak about mental health and mental illnesses confidently. So yeah, definitely try and put it into schools and into those sort of programs.
And I'm assuming that amount of money would be able to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it does. Yeah.
Like, that is a massive achievement for you to do that and to raise that amount of money, man. Like, fuck, you should be proud of yourself. That's a massive achievement.
Yeah. No, I'm super happy. Gonna keep going with it. Try and raise more.
So what the hell is next then? How are you going to beat this?
So there's a thing called Ultraman, and it's a triathlon, but you do a 10K swim into a 420K bike ride into a 84.4K run. They break it over 3 days, so it's a 3-day event. So you do like bit of each leg on each day, but I'm doing it in 1 day. So it'd be
Shit.
like probably a nearly 36 hour thing. So you go 10K swim into a 420K bike ride into an 84.4K run. So it's like a double Ironman plus a bit on top with the
Wow.
bike.
That's crazy. Did you see what Corey's doing next with the tree man or whatever?
Yeah. No, thank you, eh? I wouldn't do it with a tree on my back. It'd be super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I
Like, I
don't know
know
what.
how hard riding is. Like, to ride 180 Ks, I've ridden 100 Ks, haven't ridden 180 just yet. But to do that with a tree on your back, it's just like, that's next level. I'd
Yeah, I
rather
don't.
just ride 420
Yeah, I don't
than
know
ride
what's
with
going to
a
be
tree
the
on my back.
hardest: the running, the cycling, or the freaking swimming with it.
Well, I think swimming is, if it floats, I think swimming would be okay because you got obviously a little bit of resistance, but you don't have the weight. The riding, you're sitting down. I feel like riding's a lot easier but the running is like when you're running in a weight vest, it's just so heavy and hard. But to have like a tree doesn't sit comfortably over your shoulders, just on your back. So it'd probably be flopping around. But yeah, I don't know
Crazy, man.
how or why he's going to do it, but he definitely will get it done no matter
Yeah,
what. But
he
I
will.
couldn't think of anything worse. I'd rather do an Ultraman in 1 day than do an Ironman with a tree on my back.
Exactly. Now, when are you looking to do this, Ultraman?
I have no idea. So last time I decided to do the run, I wanted to do it like I started running, and a year later I was like, I want to do it in a year. Let my ego sort of be like, yeah, you can do it in a year. And obviously I was just super unorganized. I wasn't ready physically, and then probably not mentally either. So I'm just sort of seeing. I got a new coach now as well, who's training me for it. So I've been training for about a month now. So I think I'll speak to him soon and just be like, when do you think it's a realistic date? That I could probably set it at. I obviously want to do it in summer, or not summertime completely, but the water's freezing at the moment and we've got minimal daylight. So I'll have to go through the night into the next day. So yeah, definitely when it's warmer that I have more daylight as well. So yeah, I have no idea. Just see how to train. I'm just enjoying the training for it. I need a sort of goal that scares me. Obviously, like Corey as well. He just doesn't like training for the sake of training. He wants a goal that's scary enough to make you do these stupid training weeks. But I'll let you
Yeah,
know when I know. I have no idea yet.
too easy. I look forward to seeing you doing it. Now, as we start to wrap up, I guess what's a piece of advice you could give someone out there if they're dealing with mental health?
Obviously, reaching out and speaking up's the biggest one, but just having hope and just one foot in front of the other. That was sort of my thing during the run. It's just one foot in front of the other, and eventually you get to your destination. Your destination might be Sydney, if you ran from across Australia, or destination might be happiness if you're depressed. So yeah, just keep showing up every day and just having that hope that and that foresight that it will get better, because eventually it will. If you put those right things into practice, like your health and your nutrition, exercise, all these different things can help you get there.
Exactly. Now, how do you define success?
I guess that's different for everyone. Depending what, I guess happiness for me is success, like doing these things and helping people. I love helping people and it makes me happy. So that's my definition of success is giving. Living is giving. So yeah, that's sort of helping other people live their best life.
Awesome. Now, last question. When your time's all up and done in this earth, you've done all these crazy fucking events, what would you like to be remembered for?
Oh, that's a hard question. I don't know. Maybe my funny videos on Instagram. They'll be there forever, hopefully. So I made a lot of dumb videos over the years on Instagram. So probably those make people laugh. Humor's the best. It's a universal thing. People love laughing. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, Troy, thank you so much for jumping on the potty today. I really appreciate it, man. For the listeners, where can they find you on social media?
Probably Instagram's my biggest one. It's underscore Troy James Jones. But yeah, it's Instagram and Facebook, just Troy Jones. If you want to add me and you want to speak to me about any struggles you're going through, I might be able to help, I might not, but it's worth a try. So yeah, Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Bro, I appreciate it. Can't wait to follow your journey. Can't wait to see you do this ultra, man. It's going to be a hell of a ride, that's for sure. Thank you once again for all the listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.